What we are trying in all these discussions and talks here is to see if we cannot radically bring about a transformation of the mind. Not accept things as they are, nor revolt against it. Revolt doesn't answer a thing. But to understand it, to go into it, to examine it, give your heart and your mind with everything that you have to find out a way of living differently. But that depends on you and not somebody else. Because in this there is no teacher, no pupil. There is no leader. There is no guru. There is no master, no savior. You yourself are the teacher and the pupil, you are the master, you are the guru, you are the leader, you are everything. And to understand is to transform what is. I think that's been our wanted.
We are witnessing a very interesting epoch in time regarding the current mindset of the general public here in the United States, and I'll keep it within those borders. And the problems we face now not only have to do with ideology, but also manipulation, psychological operations. By who? Various officials and institutions that want to take advantage of your unemotional state, which is under a constant state of duress. Now, who's to say that various issues like economic stagnation, an increasing source of inflation from every avenue, societal for fracture of societal community, and of course, inward parental discourse that is divisive. It's almost as if we have lost the ability to communicate with one another. I mean, you see it on viral media every single day. People having problems talking to females, females having problems talking with males, sons and daughters having problems talking with their parents, with their teachers, with their religious scholars. All of this, along with the media, along with the newspapers, along with the billboards, are filling you with very insidious, very divisive human constructs that are meant to overcome your ideology. They're meant to overcome your individuality. Ideology does not define you. I've been saying this from time and time again for many years now. Long ago, about in 2006 and 7, I encountered a philosopher online named Jiddu Krishnamurti, along with Alan Watts, along with Terence McKenna. They helped me to shape that the view of the world outside of the boundaries of the earth is what's really important here. We sometimes forget where we came from. Remember, we're coming from the ethos of the universe. We're not just flesh and blood. Although I used to be an anti-theist myself and not believe in God, I do believe in a source, an essence that is undefined. It's impossible. And I think it's that way so that we don't concentrate on death so much, but we concentrate on life. But some people don't like know for an answer. They don't know anything. So they'll just make it up as they go along. This is what I think monotheism is. But monotheism, in modern day monotheism, talking about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, aren't totally false. I think the supernatural stories are basically fictitious. But I think the message overall comes from the prophets that actually existed and really were from a direct source of the essence I'm talking about. And they weren't speaking literally, because at the time, literal translation meant that trying to, spread a message where the world is basically not understanding yet, and they spoke allegorically. And I'll use an example. When Christ says, I think in Matthew, verily I say unto you, if you do not come to me as children, you shall never see heaven. Now, does that mean that when we die, we're 6 years old in heaven and playing a harp, sounding God's name? That's pretty primitive, if you ask me. I think it comes from pre-knowledge. When you're young, you don't know anything about the world. You're carefree. You don't have to worry about bills and money and spending time at work and worrying about when the next check is coming in and whatnot. That's all man-made. We're talking about a state of feeling. When were you the most happiest? When you were young. Now, for everybody, they probably had a very troubling childhood. I did, but there were times where I was happy when I was a youth. And those times I remember. As you get older, you become more tranquier and more, stressful about how others, and you view others prejudiciously, biasly, without even realizing it or even knowing it. Because you become so dissatisfied with the world that you just said, you know what, fuck everybody, right? I mean, come on, everyone watching this video can relate, right? But to look past that and to look to that plane of state that you can return to at any time is what's important. Now, here we're talking about the troubling aspect of ideology and violence that comes with it. Ideology produces violence. Ideology is about coordinating with an organization or a group of like-minded people, whether it comes to racism, politics, religion, sexism, any of the catchisms, right? You're meant to stay within that worldview and not know anybody else, because everybody else is the preconceived enemy. Why? Because that organization told you that outside thoughts and outside of the construct within that bubble, they're all wrong and they're enemies. And what do you do to your enemies? Conflict. There is no conversation. There is no happy medium here. It's my way or the highway. Now, in the last couple of, weeks and months and years, I've been seeing a heightened tension of the public itself. We have become the most polarized country on the face of the earth. No doubt about it. And this is happening through influential elements within the state, within the intelligence services, and media. And when it comes to media, who I don't even have a TV. I haven't had TV since 2009. I won't watch the news. I'm not ideologically possessed. And when I talked about, listening to philosophers like Jiddu Krishnamurti, it talks about understanding the self and getting rid of these applications. It doesn't come overnight. It slowly erodes away. And when you realize that everybody else has a common theme, we're all human beings, and we all transcend from the universe, is when you really start looking at the bigger picture. The world is not black and white. That's what ideology does. It paints different colors on different people's subsets. You have to look past the skin. You have to look past the thought processes that were learned over time by institutions and organizations. If you're judging by culture, well, of course, this is all basically just a test to see if you can look past it and understand that the person sitting next to you in Nigeria is no different from you, for the exception of how they were raised and what traditions they were taught and what beliefs they have. But when it comes right down to it, you will need each other in the times of an existential crisis that threatens mortality. Then what? Say a comet's coming to Earth and destroying the entire world. So much for the Democrat-Republican Party. So much for being black and white. So much for being a homosexual or a heterosexual, right? All that goes out the window. You're not thinking that. You're thinking of survival at this point. And if the next man can help me, I'm going to ask the next man to help me. Or if the next man is wanting me to help, I'm going to help. Unless you're a sociopath, you don't care, right? That's what it's going to come down to here in this state. Now, I was very fortunate to learn from this type of philosophy and understand that we are uh, in oneness. Now, of course, I have my own personal uh, psychological defects to work out. Um, I'm very stoic. I'm not, fully understanding of how to direct my emotions to people, and so I have that to work out. But I'm not divisive. I hate ideology. I hate joining any organization. I don't vote because to vote into a system that is corrupt from within is to basically acquiesce to the problem itself. It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or Democrat. Um, and so what we're seeing today is basically a manipulation of the conscious mind within the United States by very insidious people with nefarious agendas that want to keep you divided from each other instead of united and looking at the problem in the first place that's causing all this. Now, of course, I can't just blame the entire government for all the problems of the world. We are individually accelerating this process. We make the decision to join an organization of like-minded people and then to react emotionally on those principles. But when it comes to the media itself, I hate them more than anything. Media manipulation is like referring to a diverse range of tactics used by individuals within this institution, organizations, and of course, governments and the intelligence services, which is to basically directly influence, right? To directly influence and shape public opinion, often by distorting, misconstruing, framing, or falsifying information at times. They don't have to outright lie. They just basically have to tell a, a written part truth and misconstrue it to fit a narrative. And the essence of doing this happened well before World War I. While during the 20th century, it was radio and then later TV. And of course, the rise of digital media has made these techniques more complex and faster, allowing for misinformation and manipulation to spread even rapidly. So they took advantage of the internet. I mean, now we have to fear AI, which is, I think, the most dangerous form. There's a picture that's circulating, even circulated by members of the government, that show Alex Preddy, who was shot in Minneapolis by ICE agents. There's a picture of him kneeling and holding something in his hand. And on top, you see an agent with a gun over his head, and another agent below him without a head. And it looks like an arm all, misconstrued. And you could tell just by looking at it, it's AI. The picture is manipulated. But you have educated people, and this is where the real danger comes from, educated people who are looking past the rational cognitive discourse and inflaming you with a inflammatory poster saying, look, an execution's happening. Now, I happen to think that the ICE agent himself killed this person unjustly. There are people who are saying that this was an accidental shooting or it was a justified shooting even. To me, I mean, if you have 5 guys and you can't detain one person, you must look for a different job of employment because the decisions are life and death. Now, to those who are saying that Alex Preddy knowing he had a gun, should never have inserted himself in that situation. I can understand that as well. But you have to be unbiased to make a rational decision based on a criminal investigation. If you're going to have people that are basically ideologically possessed, okay? I mean, you have Trump officials like Kristen Nyone and Dan Bonvino, who are basically lying to the public, saying this guy's a criminal, he's a rioter, he's a communist. The framing itself is to inflame persuasion upon the right. Where on the left, you see people saying the ICE agents are fascist. They are incompatible with our values. This guy's a nationalist. He's a Nazi. This is meant to break away from who? From each other. Do you think really that Tom Walz, that Tim Walz, or Kristen Nyone, or anybody else from the left and right, those people have the means, the wealth, the influence to basically live away from the public? And how they got to those positions is where we should investigate. But nevertheless, in order to distract you, we need an incident and to take advantage of this incident and to basically push the narrative through the media to make you break away and fight amongst each other. That's the confusion. And when you're dealing with all this on top is that you also are basically finding ways to separate yourselves from each other by listening to the government, listening to the media, because it's a comforting feeling to have a bunch of people on my side. Now, just imagine if you were to break away from those chains and to group together and have the possibility of a new world. Today, we have to go through a myriad of misinformation and disinformation. I mean, there's deep fake, synthetic media, information laundering, data-driven targeting, all meant to inflame the emotional manipulation of the self. Today's AI is to create realistic but entirely fake audio or even video on purpose, particularly to influence political and racial outcomes, even religious outcomes. Remember, the divisive constructs are important here. And when you have information laundering, like publishing a story or a dubious origin in a less trusted source than having established mainstream media reports on the report to make it seem credible. Now, not all media is fake. I mean, you really have to take the time to see who is credible, who's really showing the picture without using bias and persuasion and prejudice. Good luck, right? It seems that everybody has a bias and agenda. That doesn't mean that you yourself have to acquiesce to one of those worldviews. You don't. Now, here's the terrible feeling. The terrible feeling is feeling alone. To know that you are outside of this structured thought process, this closeted, structured process. That means even family, friends, teachers, instructors, and scholars, you feel alienated and alone. That's a horrible feeling. You can't trust nobody. You can't talk to nobody because they're so possessed. It's like being outside the Matrix and Neo finally realizing that, you know, he's one with the bigger parts of the universe instead of a small structured world, right? That's what I think the Matrix was about. And that doesn't mean that you have to feel defeated. Enlightenment comes from within. And one thing that Jiddu Krishnamurti taught at was he gave a lecture at Berkeley back in 1972, where he basically said, that the real revolution will come not through masses of people, but through yourself. And when you understand who yourself is, when you understand that you transcend outside of those boundary lines that I spoke about previously in this video, is to finally realize that you are much bigger and greater than what you are. And what a liberating feeling that is. To know about you are part of the wonderment of the universe or universes, and that the possibilities are endless when it comes to this line of thinking, and that you feel empowered, you feel secure. You're bigger than what you are, than what the world is making you out to be, with the media, with the government, what those scholars and what those imams and teachers are telling you. And that's what I think the real message of those latter monotheisms we're talking about. The Prophet Muhammad, Jesus Christ, Maimonides, all these scholars that basically existed in some form, some enlightenment directly from the source that is outside of human application and speaking figuratively, allegorically to you, that the only thing that matters is that you treat one another relatively well as you would treat yourself. If you're going to fight for a construct, you're going to fight for an ideology, well, then you're losing the battle. You're alienating yourself. The enemy is not you. The enemy is not him. The enemy is the people who are making you and him think this way. This is the whole message I was trying to relate to you in previous videos. And after watching all this mess in Minneapolis and watching the mess throughout the country in the last just 5 years after COVID, it just seems that everybody has lost their fucking minds here. And if you just basically just calm down, it's not the end of the world. If you just relaxed, have a conversation, a deep meaning conversation with the person that you are ideologically opposed to, you'll find out you have much more in common than you do regarding your divisive constructs that you learned over time. Those mean nothing. And so hopefully this video will basically resonate more with you than all the other videos I've ever done, because I'm talking about the bigger picture here. I'm talking about the human condition and what we mean to the universe. Imagine an alien race of a higher learning were to visit here. You think they would land? That's the reason why maybe we haven't seen a UFO or an alien yet. I mean, right? Do you think we think we're ready? My poor attempt at levity. I'm sorry. I got to try this more. I'm too serious. But I think we do live in very tumultuous times, and I do want to resonate with more people. I don't want to become that old angry old man. And I've always been against that, even when I was younger. You know, you grow old and you start, yeah, the world, it was better in my day. That's stop that line of thinking. Stop that generational tradition. You know, Christ once said, I'm a hypocrite because I'm an atheist, right? But, you know, I do believe Christ existed, but not in the sense of, you know, he's a Christian. He never said he was a Christian, by the way, mind you. But he basically said, worry not for tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Worry about the now. You're alive right now. And I think the deeper meaning is don't worry about death. Don't worry about what comes in the afterlife. Because if you're more worried about that, you're not living and you're not bettering yourself. Okay? I'm speaking to me. But the improvements come 1 second at a time, not 1 minute at a time, not 1 second at a time. right now. You're living in the moment. You can make a difference. And my final message here is that I used to tell people who are watching these videos, who follow me on YouTube. I'm very grateful, um, to make videos themselves, to write articles. I mean, if you can't go out and protest, right? If you can't voice your opinions and your thoughts in the real world, you could do it online. And for God's sakes, we desperately need that now more than ever. I encourage my followers to become leaders. I don't want followers. I don't want subscribers to just listen to me. I want them to listen to everybody, and I want them to take their 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 information, their learned information, which are universal and outside of the ideological paradigms, and to basically try to help unite the public against a registered evil, which is government. To do it now before we lose that right to do so. And I know that's a bold declaration, but my God, are they slowly going toward that route? So if you think that you're not good looking enough, if you think that your accent sucks, look at mine. I, I hate this New York accent, but the message is what's important. For years, I was afraid of the camera. I remember my very first 9/11 interview, and I used to have all these notes on the table. This is like 10 years ago. And it was a 2-hour interview. And I just pushed the papers away and I said, look, I'm a mess. But over time, I got used to it because it wasn't about me. It was about spreading a message, spreading information that is helpful to everyone and not a subsection. As I've always said in many of my videos, information is power, and power belongs in the hand of the people. And soon enough, one day, we won't have this power because we won't know anything. We'll believe anything. And belief leads you to a state of paralysis, inaction, irresponsibility. And that's what's going on right now. And so I beg of you to make yourself a leader, make yourself the student. You're the teacher, you're the pupil, you're the student, you're the guru, you're the imam, you're the scholar. You are everything. But to understand that is to know what is. And that is what Jiddu Krishnamurti taught. You have to understand yourself down to the basic fabrics of what makes you up here.